To NURFM 103.7. Time to have a look at things happening in the world of education, and we do that with John Fischetti from the University of Newcastle, Professor of Education. John, good morning. Thanks as always for popping in. Maths is on the agenda today, and the question is how much maths do we need for the senior students at that upper end of high school? Now, we're not going to ask the students because most of them will say no, we don't need that, but that actually kind of is at the heart of the problem, isn't it? Maths, it's not something that's fun, generally, and we sort of a bit of a crossroads with it.
Yeah, good morning, Mark. This is one of those controversial topics. Stay with us 3 or 4 minutes. It's going to be okay, because the first reaction might be, what are they doing? They're crazy. But the move in New South Wales and all around Australia is to increase the maths requirements through a year 11 and 12. Actually, right now in...
Don't like that.
Actually, like right now in Victoria, New South Wales, only through year 10 is maths required. And they're moving to having it required in year 11 and 12. And they're working out the details of whether it should be a requirement to do HSC, sort of advanced maths, or just basic maths. And it leads to the conversation, do we want more of maths or do we want more of something else?
So I can recall being in the back end of high school, and once maths got beyond the basics, if we can just be very simplistic here for a second, and the questions would always, why do we need this stuff when most of us are never going to use it, all the rest of it, and the response from the teachers was always, well, yeah, you might not use it, but it's teaching you to think and how to problem solve, and I can literally remember being in classrooms hearing that. Is this the way to get kids to students to open their mind this way, or are there other ways?
Absolutely great question, Mark. And those skills, the critical thinking, problem solving, collaboration, all of those things that come from great maths are absolutely in maths, but they're also in other things. When you read a great book and you're trying to analyze the author's intent and rewrite something in your own words, that's critical thinking, that's problem solving, that's collaboration if you peer review. It happens in drama when we're going to improv or we're going to enact a play. So it is multidisciplinary. We still need a lot of kids to do advanced maths, there's no doubt. But does everyone need calculus? Right now, only 25% of Australian jobs, and into the future, it looks very similar, actually need anything beyond basic numeracy and what we'll call computational thinking, which I think gets that kind of thing you were talking about. Make sure that happens through primary. We need 100% of our kids to do really well in what might be the basic math, but taught different through computational thinking.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it, John? We don't need people getting to year 10 and thinking that 1 + 1 equals, 5 or something, or whatever.
Or doing their times tables on their fingers, which slows them down for algebra. So this notion that we have to have everybody do the advanced, I think might be right for some, but all of us need advanced thinking, and that could come where students take the courses they want. If we do this, there's 3 things that are going to happen, and this is part of my job, is to see the future. The first is most students won't do well, and they won't like it unless we teach it very differently. The second is we have 650,000 new kids entering secondary schools in Australia in the next several years. They're in a little bubble of primary growth that happened just a few years ago. And as that goes through, there won't be enough math teachers because we currently, for kids who are in years 7 to 10, by the time they get to year 10, a quarter of all kids will have had at least 1 year where they didn't even have a math teacher teaching math. They might have been an English teacher, moved into math because they didn't have anybody else. That shortage is going to really grow.
That actually is amazing to me, and I guess it's simply because it wasn't a thing when I was in high school, 80s, early 90s. There were enough maths teachers, English teachers, science, whatever it was. There just seemed to be enough to go around. If there is this push for more maths and everybody to be doing maths, I guess there would need to be more teachers doing it, but then you need it to be fun enough for people to want to actually study it to start with. So you kind of go around in this big circle. How do we make maths more fun or do it differently?
I think the number one solution that anybody, whatever side you've already taken on this, has to agree is the way we do maths in many primary schools has to be different. There's so many great teachers out there doing that right now that I don't want to disrespect, but we still typically teach math the way it was taught to you and me. Very textbook and test-driven and not applied. The kind of computational thinking requires some computer coding, project-based learning, building and making and designing and creating and exhibiting and presenting, action verbs, not just doing worksheets and problems that just become redundant. With that kind of math and the basic numeracy, where we're going to end up is with a population that enters secondary school more likely to want to do the advanced math, but even if they don't, ready for the jobs that are future. And I did an analysis of the jobs that are coming in the next 10 to 15 years. There's less STEM jobs than have been purported, but they all need that kind of computational thinking. There's more jobs in aged care, in education, in logistics, which has some geometry and some other problem solving, in running fitness clubs and well-being, in psychology. And you can say there's lots of math, but at the advanced math level, everybody needs the basic. Not everybody needs the upper level. So how do we get this right? As I think, let student passions drive this. Teach primary really brilliantly. That's going to take some training of primary teachers to get it better.
You know, as we wrap up today, John, you mentioned about part of your job as a teacher, and obviously a teacher of teachers and all of that, is just to see into the future a little bit. I can always remember every maths teacher that I ever had when they were talking about the calculator, and I'd say, look, you have to learn to do everything without the calculator. You're not going to be out there in society and have a calculator in your back pocket. Not one of them could ever have imagined this little thing here, the mobile telephone, where we've got the calculator and so much more.
Well, teaching people how to think in common sense is probably higher on the list than advanced calculus.
Sounds good. All right, always a pleasure. John Fischetti,
Thanks,
Professor
Mark.
of Education at the University of Newcastle. Thanks for your time, mate.
2NURFM, a broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.